All right, well, welcome everyone to the info session about the First Year Abroad Scotland program. We're so happy to have you here. We're going to take a little bit of time this afternoon to sort of do some introductions and then talk through the program for about 15 or 20 minutes and then definitely answer any questions that you might have. So we'll start off with some intros. I'll have Heather and Ellie introduce themselves and then we'll go from there.
Hi, everyone. I'm Professor Easley. I have been leading this Scotland program since 2019 and teaching the class about Scotland even longer than that. Thrilled to have you here. Happy to answer any of your questions. And hopefully you just get a little taste of what the program is like today. I like for there to be some surprises.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ellie Santanato, and I am going to be the staff professional for this first year abroad program. I work full-time here at the university in the Career Center as a career coach that focuses on education, nonprofit, and government careers. I'm really excited to be co-leading this program with Professor Easley, and I'm even more excited somehow that to be more excited than co-leading to be returning to Scotland because I was a part of Professor Easley's first cohort of students that she took to Scotland all the way back in 2019. And so keep an eye out. There might be some throwback photos in this presentation.
There are.
Excellent. And I'm Scott Ozorowski. I work in the Study Abroad office. I help coordinate all of the first year abroad study abroad programs, and I'm doing a lot of work on the back end as I help them get ready to go with all of you to Scotland, hopefully, in a few months. All right, so in terms of the course, this course is a focal point seminar course for first year students. So it is typically first year students that are taking this course. So hopefully all of you or most of you are first year students. We do occasionally allow sophomores or transfer students to do the course if they have not taken LSP 112, and that is a course that they still need to take. And that was something that I think some of you brought up as you did your introductions. The great thing about the focal point seminar is it doesn't have to do anything with your major. It's a topic that's interesting to you that you want to explore. And so it's really open to people from all different majors. If you are an honors student, you don't need a focal point seminar. And instead, as an honors student, you would get credit for Honors 102 and your experiential learning credit. If you are in a major that does not require a focal point seminar, because there are a handful of those majors, again, you still can do it. You can get experiential learning credit instead, or it can go towards your open electives. So for most students, even if you don't need this course, there's a way that it will fit into your degree plan. And then it's a 4-credit course in the spring quarter, and there's an additional 2-credit course in the spring quarter that we register you in that is for your time abroad. So you basically are doing a full 4-credit course in Chicago spring quarter before you ever get on the plane. And then in June, the whole group will go over to Scotland together for about a week and a half. And that additional 2-credit class that you're registered for in the spring quarter is actually just for your time while you're abroad and for the things that you do while you're abroad. So that's kind of structurally how the course works. The course will take place on Tuesdays and Thursdays in spring quarter from 9:40 till 11:10. So as you are making your spring schedule, please make sure not to schedule a class in that time slot because you need to have that free if you want to do this program. And so Heather, why don't you take it away to talk about the course and the program, and we'll go from there.
Great. Thank you, Scott, for that introduction. So yes, we meet like a regular focal point. I happen to think the topic is really, really interesting. This is why I created it. The course is really born out of me kind of learning some of this history about the Jacobites, back in, the 1700s, and thinking, wow, this is really pretty great, like pretty interesting, and definitely had an impact on the early days of our own country, like the founding days of our country. But I didn't learn about that when I was in high school or even in college. So I wanted to create this class so that people could sort of learn about that interplay between Scotland and the United States, and also just to, of course, learn more about how, in general, a country's history can influence their political landscape today, and that's a heavy focus of the class as well. So we are, like Scott said, we're there for about 10 days. We fly out on June 16th. It is a morning flight, if I remember correctly, Scott.
Not
And
sure. I don't remember.
yeah, it's a morning flight this time. So we get into Edinburgh really early actually in the day, which is kind of fun because we get that whole day. We're going to be tired, but yeah, we have that whole first day. We have 3 nights in Edinburgh, and then our coach driver picks us up. Who's always somebody that we fall somewhat madly in love with, and cry whenever we have to say goodbye at the end. But they will pick us up in Edinburgh and drive us up a very like lovely scenic route, where we stop off to do super fun things. You're going to see some of the pictures later on in this presentation. And we spend a couple of nights in Inverness. We visit, that's one of the really important historical aspects of our trip. We visit Culloden Battlefield. These words probably mean nothing to you right now, but they're going to mean a whole lot to you by the time we're there in Scotland. We then have a night on the Isle of Skye. We're spending a full day with a Gaelic language school this time, and that's new. I've not done this before. I'm incredibly excited for that. I think it's going to be such a rich cultural experience. We're going to dabble with the Gaelic language before we go over to Scotland, and hopefully be able to just impress them the tiniest bit. And then we're spending the night with them on their college campus. And then we head over to Fort William. We ride the Jacobite Express as part of our travel day that day. That is, AKA the Hogwarts Express. It's a fun, relaxing time. We've got a night in Fort William, and then we travel back down to the lower part of the country, and we do 2 nights in Glasgow at the end. So that just to give you an idea, like my program is, some of the programs like mine travel around the country and you stay in multiple places, whereas some programs you, check into your hotel and you're there for the entire time. And that's sort of like, what are you looking for? Does that sound interesting to you that we're going to make that loop, as you can see here on the map? Does that work for you? And I hope it does. I think it keeps it really fun and interesting. So this is back from 2019. This is one of my lovely students. Her name is Saffron, who has, of course, graduated multiple years ago now. And we're standing in front of Arthur's Seat. And this is on our first day there. So, we like arrived and had to wait probably before we could check into our hotel, and we had been awake at this point for, I don't know, 24 hours or something. We were delirious, but really happy. And this is our whole group. And yes, we do feature your lovely staff professional, Ellie, who is in this picture. And this is this initial cohort. And behind them is Arthur's Seat. Most of my students do climb Arthur's Seat at some point when we're in Edinburgh. Some of them do it that very first night. That's probably the most popular night to do it. So like when I'm going back to our hotel to go to sleep, many of the students are getting ready to climb Arthur's Seat. It takes them about a couple of hours.
And Heather, why are you able to climb that in the evening?
That is such a good question. And there are pictures later on that will be stark evidence of this. At the time of year that we are visiting Scotland, it is so far north that it doesn't get dark until around 11:30 p.m. So we have an incredible amount of daylight. So like on that first day, we do a welcome dinner and we have a lovely meal together, and it's so nice. And we get out of this dinner at say 8 p.m. and there's still like 3 hours, I would say, of pretty solid daylight after that. So the days are perfectly long. This is a picture of Scottish Parliament. This is something that we do when we are in Edinburgh together. We witness a live session of Parliament. So we meet with some political party leaders. We meet with the head of the Scottish National Party. We meet with the head of the Labour Party. We discuss Scottish independence with them. This has been a big question in Scotland for a little over 10 years now, or you could say a little over 200 years now. Um, this is really like a huge question for the people of Scotland, voting on independence from the UK and becoming their own sovereign nation, which is, people are always like, what, is Scotland a country? Is it? Yes, it is. It is also part of the UK. We're going to learn so much more about that, but we witness a live session of Parliament. So this is a picture of it empty. And when we go, it will not be empty. It will be filled with political party leaders, and they argue and they bang on tables and they, laugh. They laugh at each other, and it's a fun time. This is also our group. We had a rare opportunity to be in the chamber when nobody else was in there. And this photo is so old. When we're driving up north into the Highlands and on our way to Inverness, we take the most lovely sort of meandering route, and we stop in this tiny little town. It's spelled like Grand Tully. Like when you look at it, it looks like the town is in Grand Tully, but it's actually pronounced Grantley. And Scotland loves to do all sorts of things like that, where you say things out loud and they're like, no, that's not right. So this is this adorable chocolate shop in Grantley, and we stop off and we shop, and people get stuff to take home to their loved ones, and we grab a hot chocolate, and everyone loves it. Yeah. So this is in Inverness, and just as like photographic evidence of this absolutely stunning sunset, and this picture was taken around 10:30 p.m. So you get lots and lots of daytime. We take a cruise on Loch Ness. So this is from our original group. These are some people who were hanging outside. There's an indoor area, there's a rooftop area. They're here sitting on the back of the boat. Some of them got terribly sunburned on that day. So we always give a warning about that, but it's a peaceful, lovely boat ride. And this is a photo from Culloden Moor. This is the monument that has been erected to honor the fallen soldiers at the Battle of Culloden, which is the last land battle that was fought on British soil. And this is the Royal Highland Hotel. This is the staircase that the staircase in the Titanic was modeled after. So it's like their little claim to fame. And we always take one of these photos like you're all getting ready to go to prom. So we have the great fortune to not only ride the train that goes over this stunning scenery here at the Glenfinnan Viaduct, but we also get to take a little jaunt to visit the Glenfinnan Monument, and there's a monument to the Jacobites here. And this is, of course, if you're a Harry Potter fan, the Glenfinnan Viaduct is featured prominently in the movies when you see the Jacobite Express, also known as the Hogwarts Express, go over this viaduct. And this is, so that last picture, you're facing one way up on like a little hill that you can climb. And when you turn the other way, this is the view. So we always walk down here to the Jacobite Monument. There's like a little beach. A lot of times, people are there with their dogs because it's not like just a place for tourists. This is, like a local park essentially where people do hang out. These are the kelpies. It's difficult to describe how big they are. I won't even try to do that. We get a private tour of these magnificent, mythical, murderous horses, and we get to go inside one of them and learn about like why were these built, what significance does the creature have in Scottish lore, and like why are these kinds of projects built in their country. They're pretty stunning. This is a photo of Glasgow Cathedral that is taken from the necropolis. You're going to see a picture here in a little bit that is like us sort of going up the necropolis. The necropolis is, of course, this very old grave site that is on the highest point in Glasgow. We also get a tour of Glasgow Cathedral, and it's so much better and more stunning and interesting than I ever thought it would be. It is actually one of my favorite things that we do on the trip is this morning that we spend at Glasgow Cathedral. And this is right next to Glasgow Cathedral, like off to the left. That's where the cathedral is. And this is our group getting ready to sort of trek. There's like this winding trek up the necropolis. And we have a guide that's with us, and she always like chooses incredibly interesting stories about these people who are buried at the necropolis. This is a picture from inside Glasgow Cathedral. This is one of our docents. His name is James. There are a lot of James. We will work with multiple people named James while we're in Scotland. It's great. I like that this picture is in here because it gives me the chance to really honor how dedicated they are to training their guides and their docents in the country of Scotland. In order to be an official guide, you have to essentially go to college for a year. And the first year is like a the first 6 months is like a general education. And then the last 6 months, you specialize in what it is that you want to work with the people who you will be leading. So they're all incredibly knowledgeable about their areas. And Scott and I have done so much work over the years to find the people that we work with, and they're just fantastic. And that's one of the things that I love the most about my program is these relationships that we've developed over the years. And some of our incredible guides, we actually spend more than one day with them. They'll take us around Culloden Moor, and then a couple of days later, they take us to Glencoe and talk about the massacre of Glencoe. So it's great to develop those relationships with them. And this is a picture taken after our farewell dinner. You can see how light it is outside. This was probably taken at, I don't know, maybe 9:30 p.m. or something like that. This is something that we do every trip. Of course, we have a really nice meal together on the last night of the trip.
All right, so that's a nice little overview of the program and the class. I'm going to go into some logistics, and then we'll kind of open it up for some questions. So some of you have already applied to the program. Excellent. For those who have not, the application deadline is February 1st. So you've got about 2 weeks to get your application in. The way you start that, if you haven't started an application yet, is to go to the First Year Abroad Scotland program page. There is a blue button that says Apply Now. click that. And there's just a handful of questions that you have to answer. It's just like 5 or 6 questions. They are not long essay questions. So they're short answer questions. You just fill that out and hit submit. And then once that is done, Ellie and Heather will be getting in touch with everybody who has completed an application to do a brief interview. It's not like an official get nervous about it kind of interview. They are small group interviews that are just a chance to get to know everybody who applied and for you to get to answer questions as well. We do them in small groups, so you get to meet some of the other students who have applied as well. But please be on the lookout after you have submitted your application. As we get towards the end of the month and February is approaching, there will be an email coming your way asking for you to sign up for one of the interview slots so that you can do that. So please make sure that you do that once that email comes. In terms of scholarships, we do have first-year abroad scholarship funding for these programs. The good news is that you do not have to do any kind of special separate application for this. As long as you apply to the Scotland program by February 1st, you will automatically be considered for the first-year abroad scholarships. So you don't have to do any extra steps. On our Study Abroad website, we do have a scholarship page that lists a lot of other scholarships, external scholarships, some other internal DePaul scholarships, where if you happen to be a certain major, there might be a study abroad scholarship you can apply for. So there are definitely other scholarships that you can apply for, but our main big ones that we give out from the Study Abroad office are automatically considered as soon as you apply to the program. In terms of the amount of those scholarships, the smallest of the scholarships would be about $1,000, and some of the biggest scholarships range all the way up to almost the full cost of the program. So I always tell students, if money is a concern, just apply. Apply to the program, see if you get a spot, and if you get a spot, see how much scholarship funding you get, and then you can decide what you want to do. There is no application fee or anything like that. So once you do that whole process, if you don't get a scholarship or if you don't get as much as you needed, you can just say, all right, no thanks, and move on. But you won't know until you apply. So go through the process of doing your application and see what happens. In terms of how we grant the scholarships, we look at 2 things. We look at your financial status and we look at your grades. So we are in touch with the financial aid office to know the information from your FAFSA to assess who has the most financial need. And then we also look at your GPA from your time that you've been here at DePaul. And so the students that are most likely to get the largest scholarships are those who have the highest financial need and also strong academics. And we take both of those into account. We award as much money as we can to the students who qualify and need it, and then move our way down the list to try to get as many people that are needy as possible to be able to help them afford the experience abroad. And then lastly, and I mentioned this before, we will register you in the classwork for the spring quarter. So leave some space in your schedule, or if you register in a backup class, that's totally fine as well. And then once you decide you've been accepted and you want to move forward, you can just drop that backup class and we will put you in. As long as you don't go over 18 credit hours for the spring quarter, you don't have to pay extra tuition. So in terms of the way the cost works, you do have to pay for the credit hours. But again, if you're at 18 credits or less, like a regular quarter, you don't have extra tuition costs. So then all you would pay is the program fee. So that program fee is the cost for the whole program, basically. The Scotland program fee this year is $4,500, but it includes a lot. It is your round trip airfare, your accommodations, it is a bunch of your meals. It's all your breakfasts and about half of your lunches and dinners. It's all the activities you do, the transportation, your travel health insurance. And then as Heather said, this is a program that moves around a lot. So there's a lot of costs in terms of all the coach buses and all the different lodging in the different places that we go. But aside from that, you really just need money for a handful of meals that are not covered, and then just personal spending money for things that you might want to do in your free time. Otherwise, it really does cover almost everything else. And again, like I said, those smallest scholarships are around $1,000, and some of them range all the way up till almost the full cost of the program. All right. And then time for questions. So if you have any questions, we will take some time right now to answer those. You can also reach out to us afterwards if you think of something after. But yeah, what questions might people have about the program or the application process or the travel? And Ellie, this is the time for you as someone as well who has done the program to speak up to your experience too. But yeah, you can just unmute yourself or put something in the chat. What questions can we answer?
Yeah, quick question. I've only flown to Canada and in the like into the continental United States.
Mhm.
So I don't know how bad jet lag is. I have friends who tell me, "Oh, you'll be fine." I have friends who tell me you'll be like asleep for half the day. So like how bad is it for most people?
That's something that they'll actually talk about in class, and Ellie will give you, and Heather will give you some tips of like the best ways to avoid getting bad jet lag. There are a lot of good tips that you can do. The biggest one is just getting on the mindset of the place that you are right away and
Mhm.
sleeping when you need to sleep correctly on the flight, getting there and just sort of hitting the ground running. The biggest mistake you can make when you arrive early in the morning is to like take a nap in the afternoon because then your body is not adjusted. So you power
Right.
through the first day, you're going to be tired, but you go to bed at the time you're supposed to go to bed, and then usually your body gets pretty adjusted. But they will talk about that in class.
Okay. Wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, if I mean, I'm in my 40s, so I do it. I do it on a regular basis. If I can do it, you really can.
Dylan, if it's any comfort too, I hadn't been on a plane since probably I was 6 years old. So that was probably like my first flight. And I didn't really experience any jet lag at all. And so it really is just like staying in the mindset. And then, like Scott said, Professor Easley and I will go over like tips and tricks in the actual class and really have like a full in-depth conversation about it.
You're also just so excited when you get there. You're just excited and you're like, oh, it's morning. You know, those hours kind of disappeared that you didn't get to sleep in your bed. And then you're there and you're in Scotland and you're just kind we're like ready to hit the ground running. We may be a little bit like cross-eyed by the time we actually go back and go to bed that night, but that's fine. You sleep like a rock, and then the next morning you're good to go. Yeah. And other people might be thinking of other questions. I was hoping that maybe Ellie, you could just maybe you have exactly in your mind what you want to tell them from the perspective of a student, but maybe you could tell us what your favorite thing was about the trip.
Yeah. So as you're thinking of questions, as I kind of was saying when I was answering Dylan's question, I hadn't really traveled before going to Scotland. Now I consider myself a pretty avid traveler because once you go abroad, it kind of just like bites you and then you get a little bit addicted to it. And so this is really my first introduction into like really traveling and seeing the world. And it was a really great opportunity to do so. Like Scott said, please apply regardless of the price tag on the trip. There are assistants there that'll help make it more affordable. And this course was just such a foundational a part of like who I am today. I was an undecided major coming into DePaul, and so Professor Easley introduced me to sociology, which is what ended up being my degree. And when like I'm thinking back to the trips, the couple of days in Glasgow and then in the Highlands were definitely my favorite. The day that we went to the Glasgow Cathedral and the necropolis was so nice. There was also a little museum about religious traditions that is right there too that we went to go see, and it had an exhibit that I like still think about to this day, which just kind of like compared and contrasted a lot of the world's religions, different life celebrations. And so that was just a very like fun day as well. But then up in the Highlands, it's such a different culture almost than being in like the urban areas. And so getting to experience the full country is amazing. And then just the people that you get to travel with is also just a very outstanding part. Some of the closest friends that I have in my life to this day, I met because of the Scotland trip. I could probably name almost every single one of my old classmates from the photos that we were showing throughout the presentation too. And so it's just a good community building experience as well.
Yeah. And I will echo that, Ellie. Like, it's not just your group. Every group that I've taken since then, also, like, I see the people together. I see their photos on Instagram and they're together. And it, for for many students
Mhm.
and all the cohorts, it has been this incredible bonding experience that has resulted in what looks to be lifelong friends.
Yeah. And I know a lot of people like self-identified as like being like a history buff when we were doing like those introductions. And Professor Easley has really designed a course where everything that we learn about in the classes shows up in some way on the trip. And so at so many of the sites, we're like already kind of experts in the topics, which makes it even more engaging with the docents because as much as they're like giving us extra information and other fun tidbits about the sites that we're visiting, we're able to like really have engaging conversations with them because we've done so much research into kind of these historical sites that we're visiting on the trip.
That's excellent. Thank you so much, Ellie. What other questions do we have?
I have a question related to the class itself.
Yeah.
So, since 4 classes is a normal course load, would we take this class and then 3 others?
Yeah, that's typically,
Okay.
everybody's a little different, but that would be a normal way of doing things is enrolling in 3 other classes. So you've got 12 credits, and then we would put you in these additional 6 credits. So this would be your 4th class, and that would put you at 18 credits for the quarter. Everybody's a little bit different of how they might want to work. There are some students who have to take more or who take less, but that would be a typical way of doing things.
Okay, thank you.
And like I said, you can either enroll in the 12 and leave the space for this, or some students do enroll in their 4th class. And then once they find out they've been accepted and they're going to move forward, then they just drop that 4th class.
Hi, so I do have a question.
Yeah,
I'm
go ahead,
in
Gia.
the honors program.
Yes.
So, and then you mentioned that I get like credit. How does that exactly work?
Yeah, you're going to be enrolled in the LSP 112 class just like everybody else. But then at the
Okay.
end of the spring quarter, your honors advisor is going to go in and adjust your degree progress report. So it's going to give you credit for your honors 102 and for your experiential learning requirement. So as an honors
Okay.
student, you get both of those things. It'll count for honors 102 and experiential learning. And you won't see it right away when you're registered, but your
Mm-hmm.
honors advisor will be in touch and they'll take care of that.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah, so it looks no different and it feels no different.
exactly. Any other questions? All right. Well, thank you very much. We will stick around for a few minutes if anyone wants to stick around and has any questions. But if not, if you haven't applied, please make sure to get your application in. If you have applied, you're going to be hearing more from us in the next couple of weeks. And we'll go from there and, talk it up to your other friends. The Scotland program, but also we have 3 other programs this summer. We're going to Australia and Italy and Peru. And so please make sure your friends know. But thanks so much. Have a great weekend and we'll stick around if you need any other questions.
Thanks all. Nice to see you.